But I avoid the monitor when I'm making films. Because it's a different character, you know? She's special.
Is there going to be...
I'm a failed musician. That I ended up in theatre by accident, but it was the live.
In my opinion, there are two kinds of people in this world.
That is God, and then are the Peaky Blinders.
There are the people who are obsessed with Peaky Blinders, and then there's the people who haven't seen Peaky Blinders.
Right.
I obviously...
She doesn't deserve what I am. She doesn't deserve what I will become. Or will you become?
And the Oscar goes to Chillian Murphy.
And then the other big thing for me is sleeping. I love sleeping and I need sleep. Failed musician that I ended up in theatre by accident, but it was the live element of it, that kind of electricity in the room that you get with an audience. Hey man. They say Irish people are great storytellers, you know, that old cliche. But I've loved story in every form since I was a kid. You know, originally books, and then I got involved in theatre, and then film and television. But for me, it's always been the emotion of the story. The emotion is the thing that is key for me. If I don't feel altered by it, by the story, then it hasn't worked for me. As a performer and as a viewer, I like people to go to the theatre and come out feeling winded and emotionally shattered. That's my preference, you know, that you do feel completely altered by what you've seen and you're so immersed in the story and the truth of the story and the truth of the performance. That to me is real storytelling. I don't know if any of you guys are failed musicians or frustrated
failed musicians, raise your hands. Yes.
It seems like quite a common story. That's really what I wanted to do since I was very little. I was playing music and listening to music and writing music and playing with my brother and my friends, and that's all I really thought about doing. I had never even been to the theatre. You know, I was interested in films, but that was when I was about like 14 or 15. But just, you know, as a film fan, as a film buff. But and then that was quite serious. And then it went, like when I was 20, the band, we got offered a record deal, and then we didn't take the record deal because my brother was still in school, and my parents said, "You can fuck up your life, but he can't." So it all kind of fell apart.
Yes.
It's a music that's popular in the 90s, and it's not constrained by any formula. And that came from the whole spirit of jazz, which is the freedom to express yourself on your instrument, which has been lost.
You kind of have this crazy story where you walked past a theater and decided to like go in on a whim.
I mean, that's the headline. But I was in school, and we had this thing in Ireland where between the exam cycles, we call it a transition year, where you kind of just don't do much work, and you get to try out other, you know, different things. So there was a drama module. This when I was about 16 or 17, and the head of a Cork theatre company came in and did the workshop with us. And I just had a huge man crush on him. He was so cool, and we just messed around and improvised, and I played, you know, like did little sketches with my buddies, and then I would see him around in the pubs in Cork when I'd be out drinking and like playing music, and then I eventually went to see a play that they put on. It was like unbelievably dangerous and kind of sexy and wild, and it was my first time seeing theatre. And then I just began to pester him for an audition, and eventually he gave me an audition for a play, and I did the audition. Yeah.
And you got the role, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah. Your first audition ever?
Yeah.
When did you start getting in front of the camera? I know you did some short films, but there's a big difference.
I did little, like, small parts in short films, quite a few. And it was in film and telly, it was really, really gradual, like a little part here and there, a little part here and there, a slightly bigger part here. You know, there was nothing immediate. And I think I would have found that quite terrifying if you landed a huge role in a huge movie at 22 or something.
Would you like to see my mask?
I knew the other guys that were auditioning, and I knew that Christian Bale was the obvious choice, and I knew that, like, I was very, very slight physically back then, and I knew that I didn't have that physicality then to kind of do it. But for me, it was just to be able to get in a room with Christopher Nolan and to be able to say, oh, well, I've worked with him. And then he called me a week or two later, I can't remember, and said, look, it's not going to work out. We thought it mightn't, but there's this other part. With great directors is you just got to show them stuff. Yeah. And they may or may not like it, or they may or may not use it, but if you show them stuff, then it's there rather than just talk about it. If you actually just...
In Tommy Shelby, you created a sympathetic, relatable monster.
So should he apologize in Italian or in English? That is God, and that are the Peaky Blinders.
They're all damaged, broken men, but something got knocked in him, and he came back with this incredible drive and ambition and, like, I'm not afraid of death, so now I can do whatever I want.
You're unlike any man I've ever met.
He has this very funny relationship with mortality, Tommy, and because I think the stuff that he witnessed in France, in the trenches, you know, changed him. I think what makes him such a dangerous adversary is that he is unafraid to die, and I think ultimately death to him might seem like some sort of release. Reading at the beginning about him that he was more riddle than answer, and I thought, oh, okay, wow, that's interesting. I did genuinely think it's one of the greatest screenplays I'd ever read.
And you told him I'll do it.
I mean, I said I'd do it before I read it. I always say that.
That's quite a risk. Why would you do that?
It's always paid off for me, you know, in every film that I've worked with him on. So it's a miracle upon miracle upon miracle to have a film like Oppenheimer. It really is. I remember at one point I said to Chris, Chris, there appears to be, he appears to speak Dutch here, and I think he's giving a lecture in Dutch here. What are we going to do about that? And Chris said, you mean, what are you going to do about that?
I don't know if many people can do what he does.
I've never understood that term, really, movie star. I've always just felt like I'm an actor. That's, I think, a term for other people rather than for me.